Hey there, thanks for watching. In this video, I'm going to be discussing my financial independence journey and motivation. Specifically, what financial independence means to me and what it looks like to me, what I want it to look like for me, and what motivates me to want to get to that point. I'm also going to be looking at my past history and money stories surrounding money, and how that affects my current perception of money, and then how I'm rewriting my internal money story, how to achieve the financial independence that I desire. So if that sounds interesting to you, then just stick around. If this is your first time on my channel, then welcome to Well-Behaved Wallet. On this channel, we talk about achieving financial independence, especially on a low income. I personally have a history of chronic under-earning, which I am working on overcoming. I live in the northeastern United States and I work in marketing. For a little background on me and my story, I'm coming in to take a closer look at my motivation, my background and my history, how that affects my current money story, and how I'm rewriting that story to help me achieve financial independence. So I got my computer here with my notes, so if I'm looking down, that's what I'm looking at. Financial independence to me simply means not being dependent on a job for income to cover my daily living expenses. So that would mean having enough income coming in from other assets to be able to cover my living expenses for day-to-day needs. So you can do that in two ways. Number one, by building up enough assets to produce enough income to cover your expenses. Number two, by keeping your expenses low enough so that a potentially lower number of assets will cover those expenses. So that's what that means, is having enough income to cover my expenses. So within the financial independence community, specifically the FIRE community, that's financial independence, retire early community, there's this whole mindset of having super low expenses, ruthlessly cutting your expenses so that you can hit that number sooner. This has kind of caused me to reevaluate a lot of the expenses in my life, as they are potentially keeping me from achieving that total financial independence number. But on the other hand, balancing out enjoying that everyday life with keeping my expenses nice and low. So again, to reiterate, financial independence to me means having enough income coming in from other assets that I'm not tied to a job to cover my day-to-day living expenses. Because my expenses are on the lower side, because my income has typically been on the lower side, I will need a lower financial independence number because my expenses are a little bit lower too. So while my income has typically been lower, I will need fewer assets to cover those low expenses, if that makes sense. So as I'm exploring the idea of financial independence and incorporating that into my life, I find it helpful to look at my history with money, the history of my family surrounding money, and how that contributed to my current money mindset. Because I believe that absolutely has an impact on how you handle money. I believe that I am entirely in control of my own actions, but I believe that what you see around you, what I see around me, impacts my day-to-day life, and especially things that have happened in sort of early childhood. They have a tremendous impact on shaping your life and your ability to interact with money. So as I look at that, I find it kind of interesting to glean helpful points of information from my childhood experiences and kind of understand how that shaped my view of money. So as far as my family history, I believe that family history is very important, but it's not the end all and be all. For example, if someone were to grow up in a real estate family or in a family that was very successful in real estate and owns several pieces of real estate, it would kind of be easier for them to achieve that same success because they've seen a successful road to achieve that goal. Not to diminish the success of anyone who has a family history of success. It takes effort and energy to be successful regardless of your family history. It's also helpful to know kind of what your family is equipping you with at the start before you figure out what you need to equip yourself with going forward. My family history was very blue collar. I grew up on my mom's side in a family of union folks who would work for 20 years in the same job, retire after 20 years, and then live on a healthy union pension and then eventually Social Security. So I have 3 sets of aunts and uncles who did that and have been living for the past 25 years on a very healthy union pension. So that's what I saw on my mom's side. She also has 1 sister and brother-in-law who were very successful in business and who started up a framing, like picture framing business, and managed to make a very good living at that. Considering sort of also the economic conditions when my aunts and uncles were kind of coming of age, they're very different than they are now. Those steady, stable, reliable union jobs are almost all gone. But it's important to realize that that's the path that I kind of grew up with. That's what they were doing. You show up, you punch your time clock, you do what the boss tells you, you make nice with the boss, you retire 20 years later and you have your pension. So it's important that I realize that these are the skills that I have, but looking forward, what are the skills that I need for the life that I desire? So on my dad's side, he was a first-generation immigrant from Korea, came here at 18 by himself, and I just have tremendous respect for him. He and my mom met when he stayed with her family, and they got married, and they made a life together. On my dad's side, it was a work hard at all costs. Your life depends on this. You have nobody else rooting for you. This is all up to you. So my dad very much had that work hard, work smart, get it done at all costs mentality. And I just have tremendous respect for that. He also had this desire to feel successful, and as he progressed in his career in business. So my dad was an economics major. He got a master's in economics and went to work in the business world and ended up doing fairly well for himself. And how that manifested was he would want to buy the cars that look good, that feel good, that drive good, but he would want to project a strong image for the business world. And there's also a big difference in the image you have to project in the business world in the Northeast as opposed to showing up for a blue-collar job in rural Michigan. There's a big difference there. So my parents split when I was 13, and from that, it was all down to my mom to support the family, which was tremendously difficult for her. So that's my family history. So as far as money in my childhood, to my conscious mind, I actually have very positive images of money. I was taught to give, save, spend with money, but that's it. I wasn't taught anything about stocks, real estate, investing, anything about that. And I think just kind of given my own natural, very cautious bent, I was very cautious about any type of investing. And this is something that I'm working to improve and learn more about, and I'm excited to learn more about on my journey to financial independence. The start of my personal finance journey. Graduated college as an English major, and I took some grad school courses. I was thinking that I had visions of being like a successful writer or journalist or something like that. And I think that the reason I didn't succeed in that is because I didn't at that time have the work ethic that would have made me a success in that field. My first job out of college was in publishing, and that's a very traditionally underpaid field. And most entry-level jobs are underpaid. And having this low salary and really no concept of how to live and thrive and exist on a budget or spending plan led me to wander into $17,000 worth of consumer debt. This is a big part of my story, and waking up and realizing that I had just wandered into this debt was a huge part of me deciding that I didn't want this type of life, and I wanted to take charge of my personal finances and find a better way. So waking up in $17,000 worth of consumer debt and deciding that I was going to find a way out of that debt and that I was going to become good with money is really the start of my personal finance journey. Writing a new money story. Fast forward to present day where I sit right now. This is the point going forward where I am working toward building my own financial independence. I am working toward building financial independence for myself. What that means to me is creating assets that are large enough to sustain my living expenses. I don't want to be dependent on a job for my income. And I realize that that's the goal, right? Is to not have to be dependent on a job. So after waking up in the $17,000 of consumer debt, which again happened gradually over about maybe 5 years, it took me 2.5 years to get out of that debt, making roughly $30,000 a year. So I didn't do it as fast as humanly possible, but it's done. And that's a part of my past story. And it's also a success that I have, something that gives me confidence in saying that I saw this, I didn't like it, I made a plan to change it, and I changed it. I was successful in changing that. And I love that that's a part of my story, because that gives me the energy and encouragement to know that I can move forward and make that same plan and work that same exact plan. To see something, decide I want to be there, to make a plan, and then follow that plan and make it happen. So that's a part of my new financial story and will help me in writing this new financial story. So there are 3 things that I am working on right now to change and improve in my financial story. Number 1, I want to go from under-earning to over-earning. I'm making more money than I know what to do with. So that number 1 is just increasing my income. And I'm doing that both by building up side hustles and by increasing the value of my skills in the marketplace and bringing that increased value to my day job. Number 2, I am being mindful of my current expenses and keeping them as thrifty as possible while still appreciating this present day and the opportunities in this present day. So there's a fine balance, right, between avoiding that lifestyle creep and being cheap and being restricted around money. So as I budget my money, I decide to be very intentional about the items that I make a budget priority and those that I don't make a budget priority. And rather than saying things to myself like, I can't afford it, I simply say, that's not a budget priority right now. The budget priority is financial independence, and this item is down on the list. So that's kind of how I shift that mindset, because there's a big difference between saying, oh, I can't afford it, and yeah, sure, I could afford it, but I'm choosing not to. I'm bringing an energy of abundance and choice rather than an energy of restriction and lack. Because I think at its core, financial independence is about abundance. At least for me, it's about abundance to choose what I want to do and having more options in life. The third thing, and probably the most important change that I'm making to my money story, is getting better at investing. This is something that I am excited to do, but it's something that I realize that I'm having to teach myself. And it's very important for me, I know, to be very cautious about who I take advice from, because some people that look really polished and professional are giving just flat out wrong advice. I have actually a couple books for you because I'm a huge reader and I've started reading more. These books are on my bedside table now. This is Financial Freedom by Grant Sabatier. He's a big financial independence guy. I also have been watching a lot of Jim Cramer, so I have Jim Cramer's Real Money and Confessions of a Street Addict. This is his autobiography. He is also a writer, but he went to Harvard, so I mean, he's just a smart dude, and I like watching his show. The fourth book is You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero, and I would highly recommend this book. Very, very good for both mindset and overcoming blocks around earning money. She is an author as well, and she decided at the age of 41 that she was going to become rich, and she did. So definitely someone that I am turning to as a mentor along this journey to financial independence. I bought this book in hardcover on purpose because it's that good. I purchased this book in hardcover because I think it's an investment. It's a really good book. The other book I'm reading is Rich As. This is okay. I'm in a book group. I'm part of a book group that's doing this book, and I love the book group. This book is all right. This is not as thoroughly researched or applicable as this book. So I would highly recommend You Are a Badass at Making Money. That's what I'm reading. That's part of the way I'm educating myself to become better at investing, just to become better at money in general. So let me know if you want a review on any of those books. I'd love to talk more about them. So there you have it. That is my financial independence story. That's the story of my journey to financial independence and my motivation on the way. Please leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear about where you are in your journey to financial independence or what motivates you in your financial journey. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope, as always, you'll keep watching. Bye.